Thank you very much, Vika, and hello everyone. Yes, my name is Alessia, and very exciting. So right now we will have a panel with two more individuals to answer questions and to switch on into the Q&A section and to answer questions from the audience. So joining Mr. Yong Zhou, whom I'm reminding our listeners is Secretary General of the Global eCommerce Talent Network of Alibaba, will be Mr. Matthew Kung, Director of Alibaba GET Program, Global eCommerce Talent Program, and Ms. Dream Liu, who is Strategic Partnership Manager of Alibaba Global Initiatives. So welcome our panelists. Just a short notice in the interest of saving time and to switch in also to the questions from the audience that are really concerning them. We will probably be mixing some of the questions that you have raised into the questions we've prepared for this panel. I will be announcing whom the question came from as well. Right, so why don't we start with Alibaba Business School, because this is something that we also focused when spreading the word about this webinar. And my first question will be to Ms. Dream Liu. So in the previous webinar with Mr. Brian Wong, the Vice President of Alibaba Group and Head of Alibaba Global Initiatives, we talked a lot about the mission and vision of the company, how important it is for young entrepreneurs to have a very clear mission, vision, and values when they're starting their project. So what we want to ask you is, the mission and vision of the Alibaba Business School. What is the story behind the founding of ABS, Alibaba Business School, in 2008? And why is Alibaba investing into education of e-commerce talents, not only in China, but now also globally?
Thank you, Alessia. Thank you very much. I want to say, first of all, for having us here as well in the webinar. So Mr. Zhou has to give a very detailed account on what Alibaba Business School will offer when you come here to join the program. And I would just like to maybe take a step back and let's look at the backdrop of how Alibaba Business School was created all the way in 2008. In 1999, when Alibaba was created, we had 8 million internet users in China, almost zero e-commerce transaction that was happening online, and there was barely any e-commerce platforms. And then with the creation of Taobao platform, which now is the largest C2C platform, consumer-to-consumer platform, and as well as Tmall, which is now the largest business-to-consumer platform in China. If you look at 2008, we had 250 million internet users. Which, by the way, was the year that we really surpassed US in terms of the number of internet users that we have as a country. And in terms of e-commerce retail transaction, we reached to 20 billion in US dollars. So you see a really fast sort of transformation or acceleration, if you may, that we went through between 1999 and 2008. And combining this with, if you look at our education system, was, in a way, it wasn't developed or evolved fast enough to cope with this change. So the digital talent that our education system was creating was not enough to support or even lead this whole transformation. So that's why in 2008, Alibaba Group, in collaboration with Hangzhou Normal University, which is a university in Hangzhou that were focusing on teacher education, came together to create this business school, Alibaba Business School, with a very key positioning focusing on entrepreneurship and business innovation. And that has been really the core of this business school, over the past 12 years. Although the school has evolved and we had many changes on the way, but entrepreneurship, digital entrepreneurship and business innovation has been really deep-rooted in the DNA. You asked about the overseas education in the overseas market, and that's really in line with Alibaba's globalization business. As we expand our business to overseas markets, we also notice there's a very strong need for digital talents. And combining this with our belief that digital economy is really a great opportunity or new opportunity for a lot of emerging markets to be able to bypass a lot of challenges that are unique to the developing country, and to really leapfrog and to play that catch up. So we believe digital talent will play a very significant role in that whole process. So about 3 years ago, or just over 3 years ago, we have expanded our education and training initiatives to overseas markets. And the core of that is really to share what we have learned over the past 20 years in China and within the Alibaba ecosystem, and also beyond as well, that what are the key learnings there, and how do we support the local talents to be the change makers, or be the seeds in their local market to create their own local ecosystem. So that was really the story behind it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dream. Just a very brief question also to you, because we were very curious. What is it behind the number 1 million young talents, young digital talents by 2023? Why is it 1 million?
Okay, so I want to sort of take a step back again. Alibaba Group's mission, I want to share that first, because that's really been the guiding principle of a lot of things that we do. Alibaba's mission is really to make it easy to do business anywhere. That's been true in 1999, and that's been the case now as well. We've now created a whole ecosystem evolved around this. The really adding the value to this, and to really constantly lower the barriers for SMEs to participate in trades, in global trade. And so that's sort of the big background. And the empowerment model or enablement has been really the DNA of Alibaba. And as we sort of expand to other countries, we also take this approach of really working with the local community, working with our local partners to help them to create their local ecosystem. And education is really in line with that. So that 1 million target is a figure, but it shows our commitment to really help the local market to upgrade their digital talent. In terms of where this number come from, and we really welcome youth, students, youth, or young entrepreneurs who has aspiration for digital transformation. So if you believe in digital economy, and if you see there's a future for your country to really embrace digital economy, we really welcome you to join us.
Right, thank you, rather inspiring. Yes, I'm pretty sure there are actually more than 1 million young digital talents in our region, especially in Asia, right? Because it's such a young region. Thank you, Dream. Very, very insightful. I think also many of our participants also understand where Alibaba is coming from with the business school now. So right now, I actually want to switch to Matthew and ask a question to him. Hi, Matthew. And the question that I want to switch right now is about more specifically about the Alibaba Business School and what it is doing right now, because also it happens to be the subject of the most popular question that was raised by the audience so far, specifically by Emilio. So Emilio was asking whether Alibaba is considering offering the undergraduate degree, so the bachelor's degree online. And this is also something that is coming from us for this panel. How did the outbreak of COVID-19 affected the current conditions that students are experiencing, students who are learning via Alibaba Business School, and whether it has affected your plans for the next batch of Alibaba Business School students, 2020 batch. Are you switching some parts of the course online, all of it online? Yeah.
Okay, actually, to simple answer your question, we actually had a plan B. We hope this pandemic can over in a short time, but we also prepared that if it is not over in a certain time, we will actually use the plan B, which will teach all the courses online. Actually, for the last semester, we successfully transferred all our offline courses online. Last semester, as introduced by Mr. Zhou, we actually teach the 4 courses, which is Global E-commerce Talent course, and Smart Business course, and Cross-border E-commerce course, and Chinese History course. So all these 4 courses are taught online. And actually, several days ago, I made interviews with some students and listened to their feedback about what are they feel about learning this content online. I think just want to thank for this digital era. We have so many excuses once we turn the courses or we use new technologies. But this time, because of this pandemic, actually we need to thank for this pandemic, look for the good side of the pandemic, that we had no excuses. Every student have to move to online, and the result turned out to be some of the students found out is even more effective way to study online instead of to study offline. And just one example mentioned by Mr. Zhou, Roberto, one of our students, a freshman, but during these online courses, he actually can leverage more space and more time and to follow the courses to learn cross-border while he's doing this by himself. And really, you know, it's a story. It's a really wonderful story to explain the wonderful of this digital era, that during this pandemic, the parents lost their jobs and they all squeezed in a very small room. These students, Roberto, have to, you know, sleep on the floor. But during the last several months, he actually did quite well while following the cross-border e-commerce courses, and he made 14,000 US dollars, I think, per day. In the last month. Yeah. So, and now he become the backbone of his family's economy. So I think that actually is a very good example to show that while there's a will, there's a way. For even there is a pandemic, but we're not gonna stop. And that is our determination. The question is about which kind of characteristics we hold value of for students who want to apply for Alibaba Business School. That is actually optimistic and resilient. For even Mr. Zhou give you a lot of insights about the characteristics of talents. We hope for you, but I still want to emphasize for the two, that is optimistic and resilient. I think this pandemic is a very good example that we know a lot of programs actually stopped because of this pandemic. But it reminds me a story about Alibaba in the year 2003. Actually, the thing is happened. The history is very similar. In the year 2003, Alibaba we meet another crisis called SARS. It's also very strong virus at that time. One of staff of Alibaba had been confirmed to be infected at that time. So at that time, you know, in 2003, Taobao is in a in a quick track and growing rapidly. Suddenly, all the staff have to be required to quarantine at home. At that time, our senior manager are so nervous because it could mean, you know, the stop of one of the star of Alibaba's future program. But the miracle happens is all Alibaba staff go back to home and they still continuing working at home. And that make a miracle that during this SARS in the year 2003, Alibaba is not stop its step. Instead, it's increasing even faster than usual. we hope the talents who study in Alibaba School should take every opportunity to make progress instead of waiting and lose this opportunity in each crisis. So I think that is my understanding about which kind of talents we're looking for. And I think, yes, so any other questions?
Yeah, may I just add on what Matthew says about you saying moving education online? I think look at another from another angle actually, because when we actually try to teach people online, actually that's quite a task. I think the reverse push also not actually push a student online, but also for us to really thinking of every day about how do we attract the attentions of the students, how to really mean, because you're miles away, and if I'm talking about more than 1 hour, how do I really attract your attention? So actually also is a reverse push to lecturers, to the teachers. They really have to think about then how can we change our, training methodologies? How can we make our lectures more interesting? How can we really make our lectures are more catching? So I used to run teacher trainings with a lot of about 100 university lectures around the world, and I start to see a very good topic coming out. Say teachers say, okay, we talk about C2B, we talk about customer centric, and how about our teaching industry? How about education industry? And I really start to leading a research topic now in our teachers training group, and people thinking, how about we start to research in the C2B digital era, how the teaching can be changed, based on focus on this customer centric. I think this is also a very, very positive impact from this pandemic about teachers, educators start to thinking about, how can we change? How can we put a student in the center? How can we put industry in the center? And how do we change our teaching and learning methodologies? I think that's a very positive, thing I've actually witnessed from the pandemic in terms of teaching. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, both Matthew and Joe. And actually, I would like to ask the next question, and this will be the last question of the panel, because I really want to switch to the questions from the audience. To Mr. Yong Zhou, to Mr. Zhou, and it will be more about GET, because as we understood from the last question, some parts of ABS were also switched online because of the pandemic, and you were also offering online courses to support young entrepreneurs to learn about e-commerce during the pandemic. So this is about ABS, but more specifically about GET. We were wondering what projects have you launched maybe during the pandemic to respond to the situation? What education opportunities specifically have you started offering right now? And it also corresponds with the question that was raised by one member, by one attendee, Moaz Awan, who is asking whether there are some digital solutions or tools available right now to young entrepreneurs promoting digitalization of their businesses.
Yeah, okay. Actually, during the pandemic, I think GT been actually quite busy. GT team was actually quite busy. I mean, we did few things. First of all, as I said, we one of the major events we organized actually is through all digital platforms, through digital solutions. We organize international competitions around the world, actually in 14 countries, and all the promotions have been done digitally, and all the trainings, all the competition and judges, everything's been done digitally. So we moved the entire about 6,500 people event purely online. That's quite an amazing achievement, I think, because across 14 countries, or our organizers, our partners, our universities are all really working very hard digitally. I mean, organize such a where all the students submit their competition materials, everything online, all the trainings. We did add a lot of trainings also to all these young entrepreneurs who actually participated in this kind of global challenge. I remember I did one training actually for more than 5,000 people attended from more than 95 countries. I mean, that was a very impressive numbers. When I really heard my colleague telling me the numbers on the evening, was that more than 5,000 people attending our trainings. I think that's a very inclusive model. I mean, through one people sitting in Shanghai or in Hangzhou, I mean, we can really train the global talents, globally. And also we did a series of trainings. I think that from the result, we really think it's really good. We actually started teaching a lot of things like customer personas, the business model canvas, lean startups, all these kind of things to all our participants around the world. That's actually a very major thing I believe is quite an achievement during the pandemic. Also, we moved, as I said earlier on, all the teacher trainings online. We used to organize our member university teachers to come over to Hangzhou for 8 days, but it's really condensed about 8 days. We try to throw everything on them. They have to learn a lot of content in 8 days. And I don't actually think that the result compared with what we're doing now is actually all the teachers. We changed the education model, the training model actually. We become a flipped classroom model. So all the teachers really have to learn themselves at home first. They come to the lecture with questions. So actually the majority of the time we spend on lectures is about discussion about the understandings and start answering questions. And I believe that model is much more effective than they actually come to Hangzhou, fly all the way to Hangzhou, and we just throw everything on them in 8 days. And also that become also very inclusive model, because when they have to come to Hangzhou, the university has limited budget. There's only 5 people come from each university that can come. Now, actually, the university is just putting 40 teachers, 30 teachers from one university to attend all these kind of online trainings. So I think this is also another achievement we did actually during the pandemic. And now we start doing, in July, we start offering online programs to entrepreneurs around the world. We just recruited about 20 or 40 students from Malaysia and from and some students from England as well. We starting in July. We start offering online, kind of live streaming courses to these young entrepreneurs or young students or young professionals. What we decided to do is actually we bring all the students to the company. We show them around. I believe Dream also did something, with interviews the owners of the restaurants, and we interview the staff, we show the products rather than just sitting in the classroom. We actually show them the place, actually giving a tour of the company, and then make all this case study live to the students. This is something we decided to do actually in July. So yeah, even during the pandemic, actually, we've become busier than actually in the past, because our coverage is much wider, during the pandemic, I think. We will offer more opportunities to whoever are interested in, because now, of course, you can't come to China to study. I mean, the visas, everything is still a problem, but I think we're more than welcome to you pay attention to our program in the summer. We actually starts offering an online program, live streaming case study programs, which can be available to anyone in the world. Yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Zhou. Very exciting information about the new online program with the case studies. I'm pretty sure our listeners will be interested too. So we can share the link with them, some information about the program after this webinar. Thank you all. Thank you, Dream. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Mr. Zhou, for your answers. It's probably high time we switch to the questions, exclusively to the questions from the audience. And right now I wanted to pass the word for the first question to someone who is also on the panel with us today, Mr. Alim Alimov, co-founder of SCOLAR Network, to ask the first question.
Hey everyone, thank you, Alicia. I want to extend my appreciation for the Alibaba Global Initiative Group and ABS GET program for providing so much food for thought. Also, I want to thank the SCO Secretariat, the Secretary General, Mr. Nora, for enormous support and blessing for this webinar. And I'd like to ask you a question. So the question is, if 6% of the graduating class become entrepreneurs, are there any opportunities available for them within the Alibaba group?
Okay, yes. So there is no automatic we don't automatically admit them to Alibaba Business, Alibaba Group, but they are more than welcome to apply to any opportunities there is in the group. But I would say one thing that if you have gone through 4-year entrepreneurship training, you're very well positioned to be employed by any tech company, whether it's Alibaba Group or other tech companies in China or overseas, because from our own experience, digital talents is really sought after, particularly the talents that understands data and understand the digital economy and understand the e-commerce. So I think if you ask any students here, they probably don't have problem to be employed, that's for sure. And then in terms of the entrepreneurs, 6% of the students will graduate with successful business. That's, if you look at the whole journey they have gone through, even more students will try their hands on startups. They will have that entrepreneurial experience with them. So I think, in terms of the depth of their understanding of e-commerce or understanding of this digital world, they are, they're really at the forefront of that. So, I mean, I don't know the exact breakdown in terms of exactly where they go, but we quite often visit our graduates who are with very successful startups, and I think the general impression that we have is they are doing very well for themselves. And Matthew, do you have anything to?
Yes, I may have some data to information add for make a supplement. Actually, we have no specific data that how many our graduates that join Alibaba Group. We do know there is a lot because we somehow we met them and we know they are graduates from Alibaba School. But I want to give you two data. The first data is about for those students who are studying in Alibaba School last year, that 34% of them have entrepreneurship experience. And another data is, guess how much revenue totally they can create, they can generate for the last year. That is over 30 million US dollars. So for a lot of students who, who had their own startup when they are even students, undergraduates, they probably, when they graduate, they probably can receive a lot of venture capital, probably to, work for Alibaba as a staff, as a junior staff, probably will not be their first choice. So I think people who apply for the candidates of Alibaba School, you should put your sights high. We hope to cultivate the future digital economy leaders. But of course, we welcome students, outstanding students who graduate from Alibaba School to apply to join Alibaba Group. We we also positioning Alibaba Group as actually a startup, a kind of startup, because take GT program for example. Me myself, for even I'm a staff, but I not positioning as I'm a worker, but I actually position myself as an entrepreneur. That I also have our mission and vision. We create a program which will under this bigger mission and vision of Alibaba Group, but we have our own dream, and we do according to our own dream. And we hope to cultivate the future talents, have their own mission and vision, instead of to target to work for some big companies. So thank you for your question.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dream. Thank you very much, Matthew. We now want to raise the question, the next very popular question from the audience, from Sugarma. And Sugarma is asking, she's saying, thank you very much for the presentation. Does Alibaba consider the possibilities to collaborate with SCO countries' universities in co-joint double degree programs or seminars? Moreover, does ABS plan to offer free courses on e-commerce?
Okay, sorry, I can probably take the question. I think the organization we formed about Alibaba GT Network actually is a network of universities around the world. So we definitely welcome, all the universities around the world to join us as a member. For us, we can provide, the course content, training the teachers. We can provide a lot of membership services to our members. So that's the purpose of the GT network. So by all means, yes, we do welcome all the universities from SCO countries to join us as a member. In terms of free courses, I don't think at this moment we do have free courses. We have a lot of sharing sessions. It's actually for free because we do find out it's not. Of course, I believe from Alibaba point of view, it's not actually a money-making project. But we hope all the members to join us will actually be very serious about it, and there's a commitment from both sides. I think that's the purpose of it. It's not actually a free program. It's a charged program. But I think that the purpose of that is, and for the sustainable development of the program, there are certain costs to be covered. So yes, for the moment, we have a lot of free sharing sessions. I mean, no problem. We actually in the future we have these kind of seminars or webinars or a lot of sharing articles. That's for free. But I think to seriously join a member, there's a minimum fee. But as I say, it's not actually for the profit-making purposes, but actually for a commitment.
Just to add quickly, I completely agree with what Mr. Zhou said. And the GT network was created to offer a very systematic teaching method that can be easily deployed locally. So we definitely welcome local universities to join the network and to also contribute as well. And if you're looking for inspirations in terms of, stories from China or cases that maybe can offer you some aspiration, that you can look at AGI Insights as well, which I believe, Alicia, maybe you could share the link with the group. That may offer some insight to sort of how we view leadership, how we view entrepreneurship, and crisis management. But those are the articles and videos available for free. But they are not, it cannot replace GT, which is a much more extended sort of very systematic sort of curriculum focusing on digital economy. So.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Zhou and Dream. The next question I wanted to raise, because this is also a question that was raised before the webinar. Some of the participants who were registering were raising this question, and we saw this reappearing in the chat now too. More specifically, it was raised by Mr. Mahdi Rahmani. We don't know where the person is from. So Mr. Rahmani, if you can write in the chat where you're coming from, we would love to mention that, because we think it's important to mention where our participants are coming from. And Mr. Mahdi Rahmani is saying, hi, I'm so interested about ABS and want to join ABS, but the accommodation fee and tuition fee is very high for me. So is there any scholarship? And Mr. Rahmani is coming from Afghanistan.
Sorry, I don't know why I'm always forgetting. Yes, we do have scholarships from ABS for the degree program, but we have very limited place available, and I think the scholarships is actually not of course it's a financial aid, but actually it's actually trying to attract the best students around the world, and they try to reward the entrepreneurships the students really have. And we do have limited scholarship available, both from, I believe, from the university and also from Alibaba Group. There's limited scholarship, not as other Chinese universities that many. The reason I think we set up this kind of policy, I think as an entrepreneur, you do have opportunities to come to ABS and making money yourself, like Roberto. I mean, he's making, $14,000 yourself a month. You don't need this kind of thing as an entrepreneur. I think that's really also a message very clear. We, as entrepreneurs, I will make my own way. I will make it, make my own money and make my own living. I think that's also another examples of entrepreneurship. I think that's entrepreneurial spirit. Yeah, so that's the answer we do have, but it's very selective.
Around, yeah, the number is around top 10 to top 20%.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Zhou. Thank you very much, Matthew. The next question we wanted to ask was also raised a couple of times by different participants. In particular, I'm looking right now at the one that was written by Angelina Ilina. Also, please write where you're coming from, either in the chat or under your question in the Q&A section. And it concerns different GAT programs that are not particularly targeting bachelor or master students. Thank you for your presentation, says Angelina. Are there any courses not like bachelor or master degrees courses, just courses for those who already graduated or studying now who doesn't need a degree? And how can we find out about them? Thank you very much.
Oh, yes, yeah. Sorry again, yes, we do have programs. Actually, Alibaba Business School, we have, I believe, probably 3 types of programs now offering. One is actually a bachelor degree, actually for undergraduate students. It's a 4-year bachelor degree program. But also now we are talking about launching in this in the fall, in July, or in July, about a short online program, which is an offline blended learning program where the students study most of the live case studies and lectures and online. But when they actually have opportunities, they can visit China for 2 small short semesters, like 2 weeks programs here in China. That's open to all the people. Either you are a university graduate or you are young professionals. You all can study that program. But also we are considering actually about launching a new program in the fall. Actually, is a 1-year program where it's actually a Chinese language, Chinese business culture, and a GT program combined together. Actually, we cater for a group of students really thinking of doing business with China and come to China, study language and culture plus the digital economy. And that's a 1-year program. That's open to students, fresh graduates or young professionals who are thinking changing careers, or the young graduates thinking of taking up a gap year before they really locate their future career. I think these 3 programs will become available after July. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Very, very useful information to know. The next question was actually the one that we prepared for the panel, but it was also raised by many potentially interested applicants to ABS. It is about the Chinese language. And the question is, maybe you could elaborate a bit on the requirements for the ABS program, and also talk about why, in your opinion, it is so important to have a very fluent Chinese for potential attendees of the ABS of the Alibaba Business School.
All right, sorry, yeah, I think I should take that question because you're asking about Chinese language, why Chinese language is so important. I think let's look at bigger picture. I mean, when you go to a country to study, I think when you graduate, let's thinking of beginning with end in mind. When you actually graduate, what kind of people you're supposed to be? I think when you actually go into a country, a foreign country to study, the most important skills, the most important competitive advantage you're going to have is actually, apart from your degrees, apart from your majors, is that you can become the link or bridge between these two countries. Any student study internationally, Dream studied in England, I studied in England. I believe when we actually studied in England, one of the major advantages we have is that we can bridge between the West and China. I think the language is actually very important as a skill, but also without understanding the language, you won't understand actually the culture. And you even more, you won't understand the business cultures. And when you started doing business between China and your own country, then you find really it's very, very difficult. I do have example of international students actually come here to study in China. The entire degree program is in English. What's the point? The first question I want to ask you, if you want to study English, why do you come to China for? I mean, I really can see when they graduate, they really have problems to finding jobs. Because people asking, hey, you're studying in China, do you speak Chinese? The answer is no. It's like I go for a job interview saying, I studied in England for 4 years, I don't speak a word of English. I mean, that's a very weird situation. I think studying English programs in China is a compromise of the quality, to be honest. You know, because it's easier. Of course it's easier. Chinese language probably is very tough. But actually, I think it's when you understand. I also talking about rebuttal. I mean, I talked to him, asked him, why do you study 1 year foundation program? Why you study Chinese program? He said, yeah, I'm from Mexico. I live in America. I speak Spanish. I speak English. If I can speak Chinese now, as well as digital skills, I'm the one. You know, I can walking around the world with no problems. I think this is actually one of the very important skills any student who wants to study in China really have to acquire. I know it's very tough, but there's not a simple journey, I think, for students studying in China. So we emphasize, because when you come to here to study, we actually have Chinese companies, I have internship opportunities. Then you go to a company and say, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't speak even Chinese. How do you emerge? How do you put yourself into the environment? How do you understand what's happening every day? There's articles. For example, I'll give you an example. When we do developing the program, when we actually have to carry out researches, the research material in Chinese probably is that many, and all these Chinese cases in English probably is this many. You don't even access to all these informations because all these case studies every day is happening. But if you don't even have the reading skills, you access to a very minimal, very limited informations, and that's not your advantage. So I think that year of foundation program, that year, but also, to be honest, I'm in the international education business for so long. When you're studying in different countries, language probably is one thing. But also the academic language, the academic terminologies is also another barrier you really have to jump, because the terminology is so different from different industries. And also there's also one thing I think important is about teaching and learning methodologies. How do you get used to the Chinese university teaching learning methodologies, which is very different from probably Russia. Well, quite similar with Russia, but very different from the West, at least. Or countries are very, very different. How do you really get used to your teachers? How do you get used to the exams? How do you get used to your classmates and then doing group work together? Is all these kind of challenges as a student, especially for undergraduate students. That's something you have to really think about. I think that's very important. I think to prepare yourself better, then you can earn more, I think.
Thank you very much. Of course, we all appreciate how important it is to know the language of a country that you're going to, especially such a unique, different language as Chinese. I think also many of the participants wanted to know whether they have to know Chinese by the time they apply for the ABS, or they can somehow learn it while they are already in China. And we have answered that it is possible to apply without Chinese and have 1 year foundation program. This this is also something that is mentioned in the application requirements of the ABS. And I believe we can share some more information about the Chinese language program, the International Foundation program that is provided by in Alibaba as part of the ABS with our participants later. And we wanted to ask probably the last question, a more of a visionary question, looking into the future behind the, beyond rather, the horizon, also about the Alibaba Business School. The question is from Mars. I believe it was asked by a participant called Mars Po-Yan from Shanghai. And the question is, how would ABS look like in 2030, in 10 years? And a little addition from us also, do you plan to build your own university?
Okay, so, you know, Alibaba Business School, in terms of our mission that I think I shared earlier, that we were really devoted to the business and economic innovation in the digital era, by really nurturing youth and entrepreneurs. So that's been, you know, our mission, and we're a very mission-driven school as well as a company, you know. So mission has been the core. In terms of vision, we want to focus on business innovation and nurturing entrepreneurs. So I don't know exactly in terms of figure how we'll become, you know, how many entrepreneurs we will have, but one thing for sure, we're going to, you know, embrace any changes that will come with digital economy, and we want to nurture digital talents who can really lead those changes as well. So I think, you know, that's been really the core to what we want to do. And, you know, a lot of things, you know, if you look at the detail, that what we have been building in the past 12 years, here you can see the innovation center, and that's really, we've moved places as well, and we've expanded our, you know, the incubators or innovation center, because we want to really nurture more entrepreneurs. So that's all of those changes are really centered around the needs of entrepreneurs. We want to expand our footprint globally, for sure as well. So that's why we created the GT program, so we can, you know, take all these learnings we've been gathering from Alibaba Business School and package it in a way that other universities can really benefit as well, and to you know, to sort of help them to upgrade their own teaching and their own learning experience to move with time as well. So I think if we do have dreams around that in terms of you know, train or nurture 1 million students, but even bigger than that, you know, we really want to be the driving force behind the digital transformation in a lot of countries. We want to support that transformation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have some information to add. First of all, thanks for this student's question. I strongly encourage you to be the students in Alibaba Business School, because we are looking for visionary. So this is a very good question. What will it be like for Alibaba Business School in the year 2030? So we actually had a lot of internal discussion about it. But here, I would like to say, to present Alibaba GET program. We hope in the year, 10 years later, we can redefine business education. So what it means by redefining business education? Because we realize that there is a lot of how to say, disadvantage of the traditional business education. For example, the gap between academic world and the industry. And also, if we're looking back to the business education history, you'll find the business school, business faculty is built like 50 or around 100 years ago. That business school is for the industry demand to cultivate professionals in business, like accounting, finance, marketing, etc. But let's think about what is happening nowadays. when we think about what is happening nowadays, you will find that the boundary of each subject become very bigger. And we'll find that there is a lot of new things happening every day. So what will be the new business education will be like? That is our question. So what we are trying to do is not to follow the traditional way to build another chicken farm. By saying chicken farm is to educate students, a year after another, a batch after another. That's they just follow the subjects one by one, and then they become kind of like KFC at the end. But what we want to do is to build a zoo. What is a zoo is there is an ecosystem that each students have their own characteristics. In that ecosystem, the students can learn in their own way, and also they have their own mission and vision. We're not to educate them to make them to be a kind of, a worker for some certain job. We hope to educate them, have their own dream and mission and vision, and we will give them what they need and give them the clues. And we hope their own dream can drive them to realize and to serve a certain social problems. So what will be like 10 years later of Alibaba School? We hope we can generate a batch and another batch of dream makers, and who can really, think about the future, who can really follow the changes instead of follow the certain knowledge structures. So we hope in the future there is, a lot of digital economy leaders will graduate from Alibaba Business School who will, not only to be very rich, to be a very good workers, but also those people who bring the positive energy to this world and to use their leadership to create thousands of new business models to solve thousands and millions of social problems, which we do have so many. And if we do not, have our young people to target and solve those problems, if we still, target at them to help them to just make money, we don't think that we humankind will, have sustainable development in the future. So that is my answer. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I just want to sort of pose a question, throw a question back to the audience as well. You're all, students or, future leaders in SCO region. What kind of, where would you like to be, right? In 10 years time, 20 years time, or 30 years time? What kind of impact would you like to create in your local market? What kind of impact, what kind of problems you would like to solve as well? So this, I think it's a very important question for you to think about, whether you join Alibaba Business School or not. We hope that you can really look at this with a lens from, to really understand what's happening around you, looking at, what's the real problems that exist in your society or your community as well. And how can you play a very active role to address that? So I think to be clear about that will help you to think through what kind of education you want to receive, what kind of career path or what kind of life you want to lead as well. So I think I don't want it to become too philosophical, but I think it is an important question for everyone to think about. Where would you like to be? Thank you.
I think Dream just tell you about the interview questions. If you really want to apply for ABS and also the scholarships, that's the question to be answered. To be honest, I'm serious. That's one of the major questions. What is your mission?
Right. So everyone has a tip now to prepare in case they are about to file their applications. On this very thought-provoking note, it's probably a good point to wrap up our panel and Q&A section. Thank you very much to all our panelists for their very concise but very comprehensive answers. And for the final words of this webinar, I would like to pass the word to Ms. Victoria Hu.
All right. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Mr. Zhou, Matthew, Dream. That was really, truly inspiring. And it was very interesting for me to hear and learn about e-commerce in Alibaba Business School. And I'm sure for a lot of our participants today as well. So hopefully the impact that we're creating today and making today will last much longer. Thank you so much.